thought proximity to whiteness is white. I thought if you're friends with a white person, automatically you should be white, right? Am I wrong? I thought Black Americans are the only issues we have in America. I thought Black Americans are the only people that hate Latinos, Hispanics, Mexican, Asians, immigrants from Africa. Oh, so proximity to whiteness is actually not wise. Anyways, Latinos are getting a wake-up call because this Latino man, person, woman thought that they are literally going to be embraced. But shockingly, I'm going to go ahead and roll out this clip for you so that you see what this white woman literally said to them and why they are getting a huge wake-up call. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sonia. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. Credits belong to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you liking, commenting, sharing, dropping super thanks, and also joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. And guys, with that being said, let's dive right into this video and I'll be back with commentaries.
That voted for him.
You should be deporting yourself.
Why should I deport myself?
Because you're brown skin.
I'm a U.S. citizen, man.
Here. We don't want brown skin people.
You're going to get deported.
That is one of the most.
What the hell are you doing here? You should be back in Mexico.
Why should I go back to Mexico?
Because that's your country.
Why is that my country?
This is not your country.
You're not white. This brown skin, they don't want.
You will never be a part of the white community, okay? And let me hold your hand while I say this. You will never be a part of the white community. No matter how whitewashed you are, no matter if you don't speak your native language, no matter if you don't have an accent, no matter if you get your steak medium rare, you will never be part of the white community. I myself am Mexican, my husband is white, and the privilege that comes with that, for him, never for me, for him, everything that he doesn't understand. And I don't understand like Hispanics that are just so openly against their own people. I don't get that. I mean, like my son, I am raising him fully rooted in the fact that he knows he's Mexican and he will never be ashamed of that. A lot of people that support different thoughts that don't align with them and what they look like there's a lot of self-hatred in that. There's a lot of lack of self-acceptance. My sister-in-law is white, my husband is white, we are surrounded by white people all the time, and we will never be part of that community. It's insane to me when people shit on their own culture and their own people. And that's just the reality that we live in today.
You will never be white. As much as you, a fellow Latino, wants to be in proximity to whiteness, you will never be white. You will never be chosen in that way. As much as you think that you are better than undocumented Latinos because your family came here the right way, or because you're second generation or third generation, or because you either forgot or unaware of the foundation of this country and the fact that immigrants from Europe came here, stole the land from indigenous people, and then literally stole people, and forced them to be slaves, forced them to do labor. So when you think that you want to be in proximity to whiteness because you consider yourself better, think about that. Think about that there is internalized racism in our own community, how there is anti-blackness in our own community, how there is colorism in our own community. Think about those things because no human being is better than the other because they think that because they have papers that they are better than another human being. A human being is a human being. There is no alien. There is no illegal when it comes to the world, okay? So let me remind you that you will never be white. Oh my gosh, who said that? Who said it? Who said that?
That minority myth and proximity to whiteness be whooping y'all asses. Because didn't I teach you guys better? Proximity to whiteness is a what class? A privilege. And a privilege is what? Not a right. It is something that could be taken away. What I wish I could tell immigrants who migrate to this country, whether you're from Asia, the Caribbean, Africa, Latin America, doesn't matter what part of the world you come from, whatever caste system, social hierarchy applies in your native country does not fly here. America has its own history. It's an ugly history. And it has its own social hierarchy that is upheld by white supremacy. And if you really think putting on that funky ass red hat and putting them ugly ass bumper stickers on your car is gonna save you from that social hierarchy, this is your wake-up call. Like I said in my last video, just because you may be considered white, have great proximity to whiteness in your respective native countries, does not mean you have white privilege in this country. It's better you hear it from me than find out on your own the hard way. When you become tokenized and you are the model minority and you're pedestalized, right? And you're looking down on everybody else and you're willing to throw everybody else under the bridge, under the bus, whatever. Never, ever, ever forget who granted you that privilege, because they will remind you. And by the way, just because you were invited to the club does not make you a member of that club. And do you know why she condemns the immigration crackdown? I hate to say it, y'all were bamboozled, you were scammed, you were duped. They sold you this idea that they were only going to go after the illegals, that they were only going to go after the criminals, right? That's what they were saying. Oh, we're not going to really target the hardworking, ones who just quiet, don't commit crimes. We're going to target the bad ones. They scammed you and used your vote in the process, because never ever forget the Republicans can't win elections without minority votes. You thought you were throwing other people under the bus. And y'all are getting this wake-up call that when ICE is patrolling the streets and they're doing their raids and they're masked up and they're freaking everybody out, they're not going to be able to differentiate you between me, between her, between him. ICE, how many stories do we have to see about ICE detaining U.S. citizens, U.S.-born citizens, naturalized citizens? How many times do we have to hear about their fuck-ups, sending U.S. citizens to detention camps with no lawyers, no right to a lawyer, no representation? These people are just grabbed up on the street by unmasked, unclothed people. No due process. You thought because of your proximity to whiteness, because of your privilege, because you were tokenized, because they sold you this fucking fairy tale that you're different, you're the model minority, you did things the right way, you came here legally, you got your papers the right way, you thought you were above everybody, you thought you were better than everyone, until an organization like ICE is not going to care or really tell the difference between somebody who voted for Trump and somebody who's illegal. Because they asking for everybody's papers. I don't know if you noticed. And then have the nerve to act surprised. We told you this was going to happen. We literally told you what was going to happen. And when you give people in power the power to take away due process for one, that threatens due process for all. And I'm here to remind you, whatever privileges you may think you have or possess can be taken away by the very person who granted you that privilege. Let this be a reminder. He who puts you on a pedestal can very easily knock you the fuck off that pedestal. And have a good night.
Here's another thing you guys aren't ready for, man. Italy is a Latin country. If you're Italian, you're Latino too. So technically you're not white, right? It depends, dude. There's North Italy, South Italy, but it's a Latin country, dude. And yes, I do say that, you know, I'm half Mexican and half Italian. And sometimes I refer to my mom as white, just because that's the general consensus in the United States, that my mother is white. Because she acts white, she talks white, she's from the valley, dude. So I just say that to keep things general. But yes, dude, Italian is not white. It's a Latin country. with light-skinned people, man, and dark-skinned people too. So
I will never be white passing. Latinidad was built on our proximity to whiteness, and those closer to whiteness benefiting from white supremacy. So when a literal white woman could Latina fish, that is completely plausible because of Latinidad's proximity to whiteness. But for me and other morenas, morenos, morenexes, we don't privilege off of white supremacy in the ways that white Latinos, Latinas, Latinxes do. Colorism has been rampant since colonization. And my everyday experience and other morenas, morenexes experiences are not the same as people who are white passing. Not only in our daily lives, but even within academia. If you've ever gone to a Latino studies department, a Mexican American studies department, a Chicano studies department, you might generally see the lack of melanin in those departments. Because even within academia, there is colorism.
That go hard with being racist against black people, because guess what? You're still not getting in the club. This is a very, very tight group. No matter how hateful you are towards any other minority, you're not getting in. And even if you get into one of these circles, you will always be reminded that you don't belong. And I know it's just a collection of awful people, but they only want the white ones. No matter how hard you tap dance, they don't care. Latinos, your quarterly reminder, right? As a Latina, right? Latina herself.
Latin American people, and at this particular case, we're not talking about just black people in Latin America. We're talking about just Latin America collectively, whether it's brown people from Latin America, black people, when they come from Latin American countries to this country, by default, collectively, not all of them, collectively, they desire white proximity and white alignment. We know this, it's a fact. And so that's why I understand fully. I wish it wasn't like that, but I understand why black Americans are delineating. Of course I do.
The brown community has not learned from the black community. Well, there's proof that they haven't learned, because they thought that they were white, or whatever you want to call it. They thought that they weren't black. Let's say it like that. They thought that they weren't black, and they are currently finding out the hard way. You need to learn, because I'm sorry, black folks have been messed with for entirely too long. And then it's the powerful racists that are doing this stuff. To me, I think that they realize that they can't be pushing black people. So instead, what they did is they want to level up to the brown people, and they're tearing them up, getting all the loose ends, all the ones that don't have papers, and those are the loose ends. And then they're going to come back down. They're going to get the brown ones with the right papers, and then they're going to work their way back down to the black folks, because, black folks just can't.
We're coming up on 1 year of the Trump administration. I need other Latina people to let go of the idea that you're white. Many Latina people don't believe themselves to be white, but many people do, and they often refuse to refer to themselves as Latino, Latina. And they're like, I'm Hispanic. And I low-key think that that's a racial thing, trying to separate yourself from darker Latina people. But for people who are still holding out, I need you to be for real. There are people joking about feeding all of us to alligators, / killing all of us, or expelling all of us from the country. That's not what they do for white people. Talked about as invaders and criminals, not as normal people, not as the way that European immigrants are. This isn't new. My whole childhood, people were like, what are you? Or, oh, can you speak Spanish? And when I would say no, they would be like, can you just try? As I got older, I'd have people threatening me and yelling slurs at me, saying shit like, this is Trump's America, when I was a kid. Or screaming when I was in a store that I was gonna steal their purse. Got pulled out in the 2nd grade to test if I spoke English, even though I spoke English better than every other kid in that fucking class. Much like the conservatives of other groups of color, Latino conservatives often try to convince us that racism is either not a problem or that we're white or whatever, and they're fucking lying. They're deluding themselves because it makes them feel safer or more comfortable, but it's not true, and it's not real, and it's dangerous. We need collective solidarity, and especially class solidarity right now, but we still need to be able to address racism, and people of color need to stand together on this. Not try to separate ourselves and say that we're really white, or we're basically white, or we're one of the good ones. Whiteness is not an inclusive identity. It's exclusive. It's defined by who is not white. There is nothing there. And it changes, and it shifts. In a few decades, we're set to be like the largest group in this country. It is a real opportunity for us to equalize things, as long as we don't let our people fall for some lie that we're white now. And I understand race works differently in Latin America, but this isn't Latin America. This is the United States. Race works differently in different societies, and in this one, we are not white. No matter how appealing trying to pretend to be is for certain people, I have no interest in that. The bottom line is, if I am not being treated as white by white people, can we be serious right now? Like, it is genuinely shameful to try to pretend to be white, to be super conservative, to be racist towards other groups when you are literally a person of color, no matter how much you want to deny it. You will not convince me that Latina people are white. You just won't. That's gaslighting. You're gaslighting on a societal level, and it's crazy.
Don't even like themselves. That is the real problem here. Centuries of colonization have ingrained deep self-hatred, passed down through generations as internalized racism. We've been conditioned to believe that assimilation equals survival, that belonging to white society means erasing our culture, our language, and our history. And today, far too many Latinos are still pathetically desperate for white acceptance. They will do anything to prove themselves worthy of white proximity. They will sell themselves out. They will sell out their families. They will sell out their children, and they will sell out their entire community. They will stab themselves in the back. They will stab the Black community and every other marginalized group they should be standing beside in the back, just to beg for crumbs from a table that they will never be invited to sit at. And these very Latinos, they're the reason we as people will never make real progress, because every time we move forward, they sabotage it, destroying any progress that we fight for, even at the expense of their own families and their own communities. And now we're watching the consequences of their betrayal play out in real time. ICE raids, tearing apart their own neighborhoods, and the very democracy of this country hanging by a thread. They most definitely helped do this. They helped the very machine that's now coming to destroy them. And I am beyond pissed.
You know what's worse than an actual racist? A wannabe racist. Like a lot of Latinos are worse than white people when it comes to racism. It's like a kid in elementary school trying to prove how cool he is to the popular kids, not realizing how much of a loser that popular kid truly is. Because they want to be white. What's worse than a person who wants to be something? A person that's not comfortable in themselves. They want to be.
Everybody keeps asking, why do Latinos consistently align themselves with whiteness? Well, there is a historical reason for that, and we're going to get into it. All of this starts in Latin America and the Caribbean during colonization. At this time, in that region, there were 3 major human trafficking organizations: the British, the French, and the Spanish. They all had colonies in Latin America and the Caribbean, and they were all engaging in human trafficking, aka slavery. But the 3 countries had very different approaches to how they organized society. The British were known to be the harshest of the human traffickers in this region. Under British colonial rule, there were strict and rigid racial boundaries. Basically, there was the white people and the non-white people, and that was it. There was no mobility between the two. If you were born enslaved, you were probably gonna die enslaved. And the British were also known for being the most brutal traffickers out of them all. Then you have the French. They weren't as brutal as the British, and they weren't as rigid in their racial boundaries, but they were rigid as well. You can see here the caste system from Haiti, which was then known as Saint-Domingue. There's essentially 3 classes here: white people, colored people, and slaves. And as you can see, the white people are split up into the Grand Blanc, which are the wealthy planters, and the Petit Blanc, which are the merchants and the officials. And you have the gens de couleur. They are separated by free people by virtue of having white parentage, aka mixed people, and then free people who purchased their freedom. And lastly, you got the black people who are enslaved. So as you can see here, there's more stratification of their racial classification than in the British colonies, which were essentially white and non-white. There was some porousness between racial distinctions, but ultimately it was still very rigid in the French colonies, and what you were born into is what you would die into. Social mobility, upward mobility really wasn't a thing, which is part of the reason why the Haitian Revolution started. And now for the Spanish colonial system. This is the caste system of Latin America. As you can see, there are so many different categories that you can be placed into. It is not the binary white or non-white that you see in British colony. And it is much more complex than what you see in French colony caste systems. And that's because the Spanish had a very porous racial boundary system. The Spanish were much more flexible. They allowed for upward mobility. The Spaniards were down to intermarry with black people and indigenous people, something you rarely saw in the British colonies, and you didn't see that much in the French colony. And as a result, in Spanish colonies, you had much more of an opportunity for upward mobility. Just because you were born a slave doesn't mean you had to die enslaved. You could literally marry your way out of enslavement and up the social hierarchy. This is where the concept of blanqueamiento came in. This is where the concept of mejorar la raza came in, which means making your race better. Blanqueamiento means whitening the race. Because in Spanish colonies, you were actually able to improve your station in life by whitening your bloodline. So this mentality stuck. And it got passed on generation after generation, even after slavery was abolished. And so now in 2026, you have a whole entire community of people across dozens of countries who believe that aligning themselves with whiteness can improve their station in life. But unfortunately for them, this isn't Latin America. So that mentality is not pervasive here, which is why
why we as Latinas or Latinos can't support each other, because we're starting to drink the Kool-Aid of white supremacy, capitalism, and colonialism, because this is giving intolerance. This is giving eugenics, and this is the worst one because it gives everything at the same time. It gives capitalism, it gives American exceptionalism, it gives I don't know anything about economics, systemic discrimination, or even history. And it's just embarrassing, honestly. It's pathetic that the whole mantra here is that you have complete control over how successful you are in a country that colonized you and discriminates against you all the time. In that case, how come not every one of us is a multi-billionaire? Oh, because we're lazy, right? Or because we're stupid, or because we don't care, or because we portray ourselves as victims. Read a fucking book. Talk to people. This is not a flex.
Past? Is it because I read books and talk about educating ourselves and becoming...
As a person with a BA in English with concentrations in literature and creative writing and an MFA in creative writing, I have gotten the you want to be white so bad stereotype because of the fact that I am well read, because of the fact that I am well spoken and well educated, etc. I can tell you that your wanting to be white and my wanting to be white are not the same. Mine comes from the fact that I'm an unrelenting, unrepenting, 100% nerd, and we associate academic intellect with whiteness. But I, based on the literature and the research, can explain the different ways that racism impacts our daily lives, even right now. First comes from the fact that, like white people, you look at racism like a blip that you can separate from its historical context and its modern day implications. Essentially, you and some white people look at racism like it's a brick that makes up a house as opposed to the mortar that holds the bricks together. which the research supports. And you would know that had you done the reading instead of doing selective readings that would give you a wider and by proxy wider audience. From one wannabe white to another, hope this helps.
Alright, so somebody commented that there are no white people, no black people, no people of color. We are all mixed, just shades of brown. Yeah, listen up. It's true that race is a social construct and it's not real, but the consequences and ways in which it has been weaponized for centuries is what's very real. And here's the thing. This whole colorblind, we're all one race line, it is mighty convenient for the folks that did the oppressing. Mighty convenient for people who are white. Also for people who are white presenting or white passing who want to align with white privilege, because y'all get to opt out and skip the messy part. And you get to pretend that if we stop talking about race, that somehow racism will magically disappear. And it doesn't. That's not the solution. Let's use a Monopoly analogy, shall we? Let's pretend we've been playing this way for centuries, because we have. White players get $200 every time they pass go, and they get a few bonus $200 just for even showing up. And then they get all the first dibs on property. And certain deeds of properties literally say that people of color can't own them or occupy them. They also get all the get out of jail free cards, all of them. Well, black, indigenous, people of color just thrown in jail on purpose, no free cards in sight. They also lobbied and worked with people behind the scenes and rigged the game to have laws, banks, and policies helping them build wealth even further, while other players had wealth taken, property destroyed, and opportunities blocked. And now, after centuries of this, we're all like, why are we playing like this? This is unfair. And the rule makers are like, okay, everybody calm down. We'll all play by the same rules. Here's the problem with that. White folks have hotels on Boardwalk and Park Place and stacks of cash and generational advantages, and everyone else starting with nothing. And instead of acknowledging that and acknowledging that the game has been rigged and making it right, people are like, listen, we are all the same now. That's the past. Let's not dwell on the past. You're making us all uncomfortable. Just work harder. This is divisive. That's what We're All Shades of Brown does. It just skips right over the repair and the restorative justice and the ongoing effects of systemic racism. And it doesn't even admit to it. And another thing, we are not all identifying as mixed race, point blank period. Some of us are mixed race like me. A lot of people are not. And erasing those identities doesn't bring unity. It just serves the people who benefit from the erasure. So no, we can't just stop seeing race because the system still sees it and has always seen it. It was built on it. And until we fix the rigged system and rigged game, pretending that everyone is on equal footing is just a prettier, nicer way of saying, I'm fine with how things are. Yet like tragic, oh, my heart breaks for you. I'm fine though.
I recently had someone comment on one of my videos saying that something I said outed me as white, and I want to talk about it. My first response was to be like, I'm pretty sure like me existing outs me as white, but I actually have more to say about that. Obviously, racism and colorism are things everywhere in the world. I just think we do it a very specific way in the US. We are obsessed with things being white or not white in a way that I haven't experienced in the same way in other countries. I grew up in a city that is predominantly Mexican. I am obviously white, but I am also Mexican and Armenian. I have a very obviously Hispanic last name, and I grew up with people all around me all the time making comments about me being white but having the last name that I do, or me having the name that I do but not speaking Spanish, which is kind of besides the point here. But there was just this like obsession with me being white and how I couldn't be really Mexican because I look like this. When I was in grad school, I lived in Peru doing research for a little while. Peru's in South America, obviously Latinos, right? I also lived in a place where there were very, very few English speakers. There was never a question. Everyone just spoke to me in Spanish. There was never a question about whether or not I would understand it because I look the way that I look. Also, one of my supervisors when I was in Peru is Colombian, and she was pregnant at the time, so she had a baby shower. And her partner is Peruvian, and this was in Peru, so it was like a lot of his family, right? A lot of his family kept asking my supervisor if I was her sister. She has like lighter hair than I do, and we have like the same complexion. And I think it wasn't until that type of experience of me living in Peru that I saw really the discrepancy. Go to Latin America and people look all kinds of ways. My advisor also is Peruvian and she was same complexion as me, lighter hair than me. And yes, those are white people, but they are also Peruvian and Colombian. And there's no question about that just because they're white. There are even words in Spanish that you call someone who is lighter complected or darker complected, and it doesn't make them not whatever ethnicity they are. Anyway, I just think it's interesting like how obsessed we are with classifying people as white or not white, to the point where we cannot see that people look all types of ways in other countries, and that we're kind of like trying to police something that isn't even real. I don't know if that all made sense, but that's just my experience and something that I've seen a lot in my life, and something that I didn't even realize was like kind of exclusively a US sentiment until I was in grad school.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful to watch, right? That's so sweet to watch. You know, over time, Latinos, Hispanics, Mexicans think that they are white. You know, they try their possible best to idolize, worship white folks, and make a lot of people see reasons why they need to be white. But the reality shocks that no matter how they are trying to identify as white, they can never be white. They can never be white. You can see these white people from the first clip I was able to roll out for you people screaming, shouting on top of their voice that you should go back, that you are never white. Even when this man was trying to present himself and make it look like, oh, I am like you, they said, no, you are not. See, they will even openly tell them that it's even preferable for us to choose a black person that are not even identifying themselves as white than we choosing you. But you know the stupid and the crazy part of these people is the fact that no matter how these white folks are trying to push them, they are still trying to make sure they meet up to the standard of being white. Proximity to whiteness, it is not white. And they're not only saying that because they're saying that because that is what it is. And that is why you Latinos can go ahead and vote for your jobs out of America. That is why you went ahead, dance, scream, we vote for Donald Trump. Hey, we vote. Vote Donald Trump. And the moment you thought that everything was about to change for your good, they started deporting your husband, to your children, to your great-grandchildren, to even the next generation that is coming. ICE will keep whooping their ass and sending them out of America. And this is exactly what fits you people the most. I love it when people get a wake-up call. I love it when people get fearful. And you know the sweetest part of it again is that no matter how you're trying to push these Latinos out of white people's life, no matter how white people are trying to tell them that you can never be us, you are not us, no, they still want to please accept us. Please, please, let's just be white. God forbid for me to be in a situation whereby you do not like me and I want to force myself on you. God forbid for me to be in a situation whereby I've seen the hatred you have for me pop and plain. Then I'm going to go lower myself to that level of coming to appeal to you, of coming to make you accept me. God forbid. But this is what a lot of Latinos don't realize. Okay, look at the second clip I played where you see this Mexican woman that is married to a white man. What did she say? She said no matter how hard she tried, she simply know that every single privilege that comes with being white is just for her husband, her sister-in-law. her family, her in-law people. But when it comes to her, she is even trying as much as possible to raise her child to know that you are Mexican and you are loved as Mexican. These are few percent that have sense. Just like me trying to identify myself because I'm wearing this red, I want to be red. Or because I'm putting on this particular black wig, I want to be black. By all means. Things are not done that way. And I'm happy when I'm seeing FAFO like this. I'm happy when I'm seeing results like this, where they can look them into their eyes and tell them you are not us. So stop deceiving yourself. Stop glorifying yourself. But anyways, who am I? Congratulations to Latinos, Hispanics, Mexicans, Asians that have that proximity to whiteness and literally want to be white. But anyways, credits belong to the original creators of every single clips and stitches I have in my today's episode. I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you liking, commenting, sharing, dropping super thanks, and also joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. And yes, guys, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. And with that being said, with no further ado, I do like I always say in my videos, I'm going to be Simba and I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye guys. I love you guys. Mwah.